Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here because Dhyana is a great friend of mine. We've been doing a lot of work together right here in Jaipur. And when he reached out to me and said, Rahul, can you speak about some of the trends in your parts of the world? I was really nervous because trends come and go. You know, you have something today, it's not there tomorrow. But I thought I'll speak about something that's really close to my heart, something that has intrigued me, and I'm sure it intrigues a lot of us here. Something that has informed my work in whatever crude and rudimentary manner. Stories. Stories are social currencies of today. We carry them with us in the form of memories. We share them on social media, whoever's on Facebook and any other one of them. You know, we share them with our kids at bedtime. Everyone loves stories. And especially in the hospitality world, one of the things that has transformed the way the modern traveler travels, and many of us do, is we all want to indulge in highly authentic and engrossing experiences of places we go to. You know, you just don't want to stay in a hotel that could be anywhere in the world. If it's in Jaipur, you want it to feel like Jaipur. You want it to feel like it's in New York City or Singapore, Tokyo, wherever it is. And one of the things that enables us to convey or experience this authenticity is the ability for spaces to tell stories. One of my favorite memories, you know, I come from Goa, very small place, and I'm sure many of you have been there. My grandfather's house was in this beautiful coastal village called Anjuna, and I'm sure many of you all have been there. It's a party place. And that was my first exposure to what I call the power of space. It was a large, sprawling old house set in a mango orchard. But one of the most favorite spaces of mine in that house was this bathroom. And this bathroom wasn't sensational or spectacular by any standards, but to me it was the world. It was a little outhouse away from the main house. It had high laterite walls, laterite on the floor, a little window through which light came piercing through, a big well in the center of it, a big urn that heated water. To me, this was one of the most powerful spaces, and I carry these memories with me all the time. And in the hot summer afternoons, we'd pull water out from the well, have a shower. In the winter mornings, we'd, you know, draw water from the urn. But to me, this was the first experience of what was inside-outside space. Now, some people think interior design is about a look, and some people ask me, oh, it must be great fun to pick up furniture, to pick up fabrics and make things look pretty. To me, design is a lot more than that. We spend almost 80% of our life in built environment. How they're designed really affect us. It informs the way we behave in the space. To me, design is not just visual. It's about a careful curation of objects, colors, textures, within the framework of light, breeze, smell, views, and anything that is sensational or sensuous. It's about creating experiences and implementing enough matter in the minds of people to be able to create memories. While I know what works for me visually, intuitively, I need to make sense of it by telling myself stories. Some of them are real, some of them are fictitious, but hey, you know, we all love stories. Narratives that are metaphors for the decisions that I make in space. Stories are easy to comprehend, and they help us remember our world and how we experience it. In a way, stories is what makes us all feel human. I'll speak about 4 of my projects which are currently on our drawing boards. Radisson Shimla. And Shimla, as you know, many people who've been there would realize, got this very deep, melancholic feel to it. And I don't mean melancholic in a bad way, but in a very attractive manner. It's got a personality, it's got a character. You can feel it in the air. I remember being in a cafe up in one of these little dormer window, the sharp sun, the deep shadows, the windows framed these, rolling hills, people walking around the mall wearing this Pahadi topis, the beautiful colors in them, the textures. A tale of a grandson who comes back looking for his British grandmother, looking for threads of his grandmother Martha's past. Grandmother who made home in the hills, never went back. A grandmother who loved the Himalayas, its people, customs, traditions, its arts. She enveloped the Himalayas. A free spirit, Martha lived and died in these hills. Her cottage, with cast iron balustrades, deep porches, thick stone walls, dormer windows, polished, creaky floorboards, light-filled spaces, a kitchen with a large, antique Victorian table almost falling apart, a dining room painted turquoise, walls filled with eccentric art and objects of travel, fabrics from local looms. But her favorite space was a bedroom, a 4-poster bed, a large fireplace, a rocking chair, and of course a cat. Now, all these things may seem words, but to us they carry meaning. They carry a lot of personality and weight, and through that comes our interpretation of the design. None of them has to be exactly what Martha lived like, but there are elements of it. For example, how the fabrics are selected, the patterns on the fabrics, the artwork, the paneling on the wall, the simple bedside tables or the lamps. Everything has got a resonance with the story that I just spoke about. This is another guest room type, a different color scheme. The bathroom, that's the bar. Again, the bar. And again, a space that's curated with the eccentricity that comes out through the Martha story. And another one, the Hyatt-centric that we've just started working on in Bangalore, runs on a similar line, but here we pick the story of the neighborhood. The neighborhood around the hotel, which is in downtown Bangalore, just at the end of MG Road, used to be the old part of Bangalore. And what is fascinating is when you're walking around the streets of India, the streets are fairly democratic. Large street signs, movie posters, graffiti, sounds, streets and food vendors. I mean, there is everything to, in a way, assault your senses. But to me, that's very inspirational. The colors, the textures, the human form. Our play with the juxtaposition of the old and the new, street graffiti becomes an inspiration for the art. The street lamps start to inform what the lighting would be like, the use of local wicker weaving customs that exist there. It's a melting point of utilitarian elements that create a fresh language, resonates with the surrounding areas, and in a way conveys to the guest the authenticity that I was talking about. The floor in the lobby is a painted stencil pattern, the paint that you use in car park lots. But the idea of using the paint is to allow it to wear off. So you create a worn-off feel, as you can see up there, in a way expressing the stamp of time and accepting that as reality and something that will evolve into its own identity over time. That's the lobby. The lobby, the reception area. That's the guest room, the bathroom. We've just finished and opened this resort in the Maldives, and those of you who've been to Maldives, it's, at least for me, it's a place like I've never seen on this planet. The deep blue waters, the turquoise colors, and as far as you can see, it's just water with boats in it. And the kind of blues that probably I've never experienced in my life. And I remember landing into Male one bright morning and feeling, wow, this is nothing that my eyes have seen before. And from that, I realized that our designs need to be simple. It needs to be elegant, because this is a private island, far away from civilization, about 25 minutes boat ride from mainland Malé, the island of Malé. Our approach to designing this place was pretty much like that of an artist, where you determine the boundaries of your canvas, figure out the materials you want to use, what kind of textures you want to apply, and work backwards from there. So your materials become what determine the experience of the space. Of course, the use of local weaving and traditions. That's the reception lobby. Now, as you can see, it's almost a dematerialized building in the sense that it's got recycled wood on the columns, but what is important is it doesn't compete with what's outside. Things are utilitarian. They're in the place where you need. You've got a reception table. You've got places to sit, but it's engaging what you see outside, the non-existent walls of the space. That's the all-day dining, one of the suite rooms. The bathroom, again, respects the views outside and sort of celebrates the... That's another one of the rooms. This one, in a way, reminds me of my grandfather's bathroom that I was talking about. Of course, nothing here and there is the same, but what is important is the confusion in your mind an indoor-outdoor space creates, where you feel you're inside, but you're outside, and it kind of tests your sensual limits, in a way. This is a hotel we've just opened in Singapore, the Grand Park, which is smack in City Hall, right in the middle of Singapore. Again, picks up from the neighborhood story. That's the guest room, celebrating, in a way, the multicultural aspects of Singapore. The bathroom. Yep, that's the end.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm going to start with a little story like my friend Rahul. A historian I met in Mysore told me a wonderful story about the kings of the olden days. He said these small kingdoms, people would be taxed and they would be very unhappy, and they would march in protest to meet the king and voice their opinions or aggression or whatever. So some of these kings called Vastukars or Shilpakars or whatever the architects were called and said, do something. So these architects designed these beautiful halls, so you don't feel you're outside, but as you walked in, you had gardens laid out. And they had a nice name called Nandanavanas. So these gardens had fruit trees, had fountains, and if the king was affluent, he had some beautiful dancing girls. And the walk was about 100 meters in today's context. So by the time this aggrieved people reached the king, they were softened down. All their anxieties, all their anger cooled down because these beautiful interiors brought them to the king, and by the time they would be rewarded. When this historian mentioned this story to me, I was in the stage of trying to put my paper together for today's presentation. So I thought, when he talked about the olden days, I said, let me start my paper with the olden days itself. So I took basically a tree as a big motif and said everything else originates from that. The tree is supposed to be the tree of life. It's just a beginning, A little note coming away from what the historian said. Spaces of energies, you'll be able to pick up the vibes easily, and the difference in energy is usually very pronounced. So it depends on how we design our spaces. So I start my whole presentation with something called the Antaranga. As I said, my whole theme goes back to the old days, but very relevant today, which I will, in the next 10-15 minutes, try to establish. So Antaranga is a beautiful Sanskrit word pertaining to the mind, which beautifully describes three parts of our inner peace. All right? So the first one is called Dhyana, Dharma, and Samadhi. But Samadhi and above are at a very higher level, at a very higher plane. So I thought I'll restrict myself to Dhyana and Dharma. So it is basically the practice of meditation which improves concentration and helps in contemplation. So if we can create places, if we can create lovely interiors which would improve our concentration and allows us to contemplate on what is to be done, I think our job is very well done. Now how do you do such jobs? Okay? So you need to meditate, and I may start sounding very yogic, but I'm going to slowly change, my whole. And I put this sadhu there because he is the one who will very, very happy all the time because he hasn't anything much to do. And he says, if I can meditate, I can concentrate, I can contemplate, and all I can think of where will I get the next meal. I have nothing else to worry. But that was not enough. So I said, let's look at what is beautiful around us. Is it a beautiful picture? Is it flowers? Is it some lovely ceramic ware? Now all of this brought me to a point in my whole exercise which says that having started my story from the olden days, I also picked up this word called mantras. So I'm saying there are 5 mantras which are there in front of us, which will help make our indoors absolutely vibrant and hopefully will make people living there happy. Now why did this word mantra come from? Why did I have to think, why could I not call it magic, or why could I not call technical solutions? Because a mantra is something that we wish for, and when we wish, it's not necessary that all the time it will work. Sometimes wishes come true, sometimes they don't. But in the context of our interiors, in the context of our indoors, we have to make them work. So my 5 mantras start with something called back to basics. Now what is this back to basics? For those of you who attended yesterday's minister's speech, he was saying we are coming back to creating cycle tracks and pedestrian pathways. So I was thinking not about this, but a wonderful thing which I heard nearly 20 years ago. There was a nice building which I had designed, which was inaugurated at that time, the then Finance Minister of India, Sri Manmohan Singh. And he, when he was inaugurating it, in his inaugural speech, he said, it's nice to have buildings, and I had a little courtyard in that building. It was actually a building for UNESCO, and there was a nice courtyard because I wanted a little Indian touch. And he said, I'm reminded of a story. When I was a child, and lots of us, cousins and all, would land up in somewhere in Punjab, my grandfather would call all of us and show mango trees in the backyard of the house and say, this summer, this tree is yours. Safeguard it, climb it, fall down, do whatever you like. So he says, please put a mango tree in the courtyard. Let every visitor who comes to the office say, this is my mango tree. So I am calling it back to basics. And what does my back to basics say? My back to basics says that traditionally we had a lot of things which are happening. Why were people happy? We don't know. Maybe it is a myth that old people like me say that we had happier times, But maybe it's not correct. Yet, I've never heard somebody committing a whole lot of suicides in offices. Share prices fall down and people jump out of windows. All these sort of things have become very new. So somewhere the concern is that if we don't deal with our spaces carefully, we are creating problems for it. When they had royal prisoners in France, they could not treat them like any other prisoner and put them in chains and dungeons. They put them in rooms which are black in color. And so they gave them all comforts. They had their cake, they had their wine and whatever else, but they were put in rooms which were all 6 sides were completely black, and that made them go mad. They just lost control. So, basics says, please address things in the proper manner. And interior designers are now faced with the challenge of using materials, of using colors that revere nature and recreate its many magnificent moods. This is a statement given by my professor in life, Professor S.S. Bhatti, who taught me in Chandigarh. He says we have to now look at new materials. You have to go back to the Mother Nature and see. So that is why I call this back to basics and called it going back 360 degrees, because at some point of time we lost complete touch with it. So that is my first mantra. And for that I just put a little slide to say that, as we arrange things, as we put colors, and I think Rahul showed some beautiful generic spaces. So I am also calling these as that. And these are planned aesthetically, very pleasing and very nice atmosphere. So my second mantra says that you have to look at vibrant indoors. That being the whole topic, yet I am going to talk about vibrant indoors. And one of the key elements of vibrant indoors is education. I have 3 areas which I am going to talk about, one of which is education. And I came across this firm from Bangalore who were doing some yeoman service in the term of interiors. What they were doing is they were like we had plants for hire. All through the 80s you had companies, you could just call them and say, can you come? And they would come and put potted plants all over your office, and every month change and you had a new potted plant. Good or bad, it was there. These people have come up with a similar idea and thought it's a wonderful idea. They go to schools, they go to colleges, they go to offices, they put up paintings on a particular theme. And they write about the theme. They want everybody to know what's happening in that painting. And at the end of 2 months, 3 months, they just change them and bring in another theme. So it excites people that there is something new happening. You don't keep looking at the same painting day after day for the next 10 years that you're working there. So I thought it was an interesting thing. And they pick up artists who are very famous, write about them. So it also simultaneously allows you to know something about the artist also. My next area is called aesthetics. So in aesthetics, I was looking at absolute natural materials which are there. And you will find that I've taken 4 or 5 different examples. Now the one on the top right hand corner was a task which I was given. I was designing a pilot training center for Oman Air in Muscat. And they said, we don't want a single material which is artificial. We don't want to waste wood, we don't want this. So I don't know if you can call it artificial, but my whole scheme was done on gypsum board. So we had partitions, we had fabric, we had training center, we had whatever it is. So all these 4 are like that. Then the bottom left-hand corner, the chairs and table, a very interesting story behind this. This again was a cafeteria in a college in Oman, for which coincidentally I won the Oman Green Champion Award. I was trying to source for some furniture, and I Googled and I found IKEA, this famous international company. What they had done, all over Switzerland, Finland, Norway, Denmark, they were replacing old telegraph and light poles with concrete poles. So this IKEA purchased these old light poles, which were made of wood and which had weathered over 50 years in peak snow, in all sorts of conditions. And they made very hardy furniture with them. Not elegant, not fantastic looking, very, very hardy furniture. Each chair weighs so much that you need both your hands to lift it up. The tables are heavy, you can't move them. Yet, what I liked about it is completely reused wood. They just took these telegraph poles, which were so seasoned that they said you can put it on a termite hill and termites can't get into it. I mean, not that we tried it out, but there was an opportunity to do that. Then the one in the middle is again interesting. All these 5 projects I had done in Oman. So the central one is called the Petroleum Development of Oman, and they wanted their motif in some material which was very natural. So I came all the way to, got it made and brought there, and they love it. And then after that, I think the firm which did this for the first time may have done 500 such repetitions. Not that they have informed me, but I have seen it everywhere. So I am talking about education, aesthetics and flexibility. These are the second mantra of creating vibrant indoors. My third mantra is called motivation. And I have taken a very classic case study done by a behavioral architect. There was this shipping company in San Francisco facing what is called as Pier 39, which is supposed to be the busiest hub of anybody who's been to San Francisco. And this office had a huge glass window facing the harbor. The center of this office was a telex machine. I'm talking about 2025 years. It was a telex machine. And everybody in the office would get messages about ships and all that. But they were very unhappy. There was no happiness. There was no antaranga. Minds were not clear. So the top man of the firm called this behavioral architect and said, here is a blank check. Fill your figure but make my people happy. So this behavioral architect went back, bought something and filled $25. He said, that's it? And what did he put there? He put this. Right above the telex machine. A beautiful motivation idea. So everybody became happy. So this big mouth asked this architect, he said, what have you done? He said, you watch the sea, you talk about ships, your whole office ethos is water. So every guy who comes to pick up a message from the telex thinks these are my footprints in the sand and there is something else in the world which has nothing to do with water. So they go back a little recharged. And so this motivation just costed $25. And today we have motivational teams, we have emotional quotients. So all we need to do is look at very simple examples. And I thought this was a nice example of Samsung. Samsung in its headquarters picked up the word head office. They've just put a smiling face there and said this itself is an enough motivation. And so declutter yourself, get yourself into a nice mood. Then, another very interesting article I read in the Reader's Digest, so I thought I'll put it together. The article reads, as the sea ice in the Arctic melts, the earth loses some of its reflectivity. White ice is replaced by dark sea water, which absorbs more heat. If a large area of the earth's surface could be whitened, then more of sea's warmth would be reflected back into the space rather than be absorbed. So my next mantra says, start talking white. You paint your buildings white. Let your interiors be white. I have seen lovely interiors done by corporate giants, and they freak out on colors. They have yellow walls, they have orange entrances. And so I have told them, after doing this study, why don't you please go and ask the people there, are they enjoying it? Then they went back. Some of them did a study and said they would love if every week we can paint a new color. So I said, this question would not have risen with white. So white is a beautiful motivational color, and we redecorate in white. And I come to my last part of the thing, the science of trees. How do you put trees and how they enhance our life in inside interior spaces. This beautiful Persian carpet which is made reflects greenery in a place where greenery didn't exist, but yet the carpet itself gave that little touch to it. So a couple of examples I've taken, and I end by bringing you a small collection of different things. This game on the right and the game on the left are what is needed, because somebody in a big software office once told me, he says, we don't want any games in our free time which toggles our mind. So they said, what is the best game? Best game is snakes and ladders. So I do 10 hours of hard data work. I come back and sit and play snakes and ladders. And so I'm completely free. So friends, ladies and gentlemen, I end my this thing saying that vibrant indoors we can borrow from nature, because it's best at all times, and it is for us to incorporate this best into our life. Thank you very much.
Dear friends and respectful seniors, a very good afternoon. I'm here to talk to you about window to health and happiness, which is an integral part of a building interior and a statement for exterior facade anywhere in the world. And I'm so glad and happy to be here doing this presentation. And to all of you out there, I have a request. I'm sure you are happy to be a part of this great... sorry. I also forgot what Rahul forgot. So, okay. So, So, and all of you out here, I'm sure you're happy to be a part of this great event, ARCASIA. So now, dear ladies and gentlemen, please put up your hands who feel delighted to be in this hall. That's quite a happy audience. And yes, dear friends, our well-being are intimately linked with moments of delight. To an extent, such stimuli happen all the time, often without being recognized. But when they are orchestrated throughout a building, the effect is cumulative. A poor building with few such moments leaves our lives impoverished and contributes nothing to improve our health. Let me establish this through my next few slides. Look at this child who holds her breath watching raindrops falling from a bedroom window. Exhilarated by the experience, what might she be feeling? Thrilled? Now imagine a setting for this slide. The lady of the house, whose eyes heavily laden with sleep, and her tired head resting on a pillow, falls to a deep slumber as the moon casts a spell on her through that lone window in her room. What must have been her last thought before drifting to deep slumber? Something like, I feel so grateful. I feel so complete. And here in my next slide, this slide magically transmits you into the delightful world of mother and a baby, where a lifelong psychological connection is being created. Feel to your core the delight of the mother who holds her baby near a window, creating for him a warm zone full of trust, comfort, and warmth as they watch the cold, dry snow falling on the trees outside. What must she be transpiring in her child? A sense of belonging, perhaps. And then, lastly, in this slide, one can sense the pleasure of that always in hurry office-going woman who adjusts a window shutter by the smooth grip of the handle and cleans the glass pane just before leaving for work. The task so easily accomplished, what must have been her thought? Sheer pleasure. And sitting here, we all know architecture creates this 3D circle of happiness. We will watch these slides again to reestablish this thought. For a comfortable, secured, grand view through a window assembly, the flat glass industries adding their wee bit with provision of glass that is effective in heat insulation, energy conservation, dew condensation prevention, provides clear vision, comes with required security options, desired sound transmission reduction, and all of that accumulates to bring out that one emotion in that child. Here, the entire assembly, including the frame, the insulated glass spaces, and the glass, all brought into play to manage thermal efficiency, air infiltration, structural stability, and water management to best of warranty and guarantees. I think I'm giving you the wrong one. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, for this slide, the factors which play are, for a perfectly framed panorama view through a window assembly, the hardware together with appropriate weather seals provide a high degree of protection against wind and water, bringing the focus on the grandeur of the views beyond. All of it accumulates to that one feeling in the tired woman. Here, the entire assembly, including the frame, the insulated glass spaces, the glass, all brought into play to manage thermal efficiency, air infiltration, structural stability, and water management to best of warranty and guarantees. All of it creating a deeper, unquestionable bond between mother and child. And this one, responding to the needs of technology to shake hands with everyday demands, we have the outward opening windows with provision of a sash that can be moved for an easy-to-clean position, an option window assembly provides to give an easy lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, a vicious tornado seems to be spawning industry across globe to provide India with such experiences, thus squashing the Indian traditional method of putting together the 7 different window components, namely the frame, the sash, the glass, the mesh, the seal, the locks and hardwares in bits and pieces for a given opening size, style, and shape. Together, these 7 components by upcoming and prevailing brands provide a complete experience of using a window system to the end user and allow the fenestration industry to fast capitalize on this increasing trend. Perhaps this fenestration industry is being blessed by the power of number 7. As architects, we have an obsession for number 7. Our spaces are a connection of mind, body, and soul, which makes the man, with its environment, which is earth, air, water, and fire, and architecture balances these 7 forces. But this fixation with 7 is not limited to science of architecture only. The 7 days of the week correspond with the 7 planets giving birth to astrology, the ruler of mind. The ancient alchemist associated 7 metals of healing power with a planet each to rule the body and soul. 7 rules our interiors. Our very own Newton divided the beam of sunlight into 7 colors, thereby giving us the color wheel. To recap, in the last few minutes, I have tried to explore the fact that architects are responding to unified window assembly to achieve happiness through architecture, and have also tried to establish how the power of number 7 blesses architecture, interiors, and unified window assembly. Common link of these is the sunlight, which penetrates our spaces to bring in health, which, like I said, is a beam of 7 colors. Now, in next few minutes, we will time travel to diversify into established facts of psychological aspects for this need of high-performance window assemblies, closing to which blessed 7 projects is this trend catching up in India, and what 7 choices we are given by the 7 types for 7 gains by the window assembly solution providers. Way back in 18th century, Florence Nightingale, yes, the lady with the lamp, began exploring for best workable hospital designs to minimize the spread of infections across Europe. After much survey-based research, she found in Paris a revolutionary design of a hospital that had large windows in patient rooms, flooding them with sunlight and connecting outdoors with indoors. Back here in India, cutouts from a single mass of rock in the shape of an arch were how openings were created. Sun windows that are found in a number of famous caves of Ajanta are such rock-cut arch-shaped openings. Later, posts and lintels, cobbling, and true arch in order to span small openings were mastered. Modern medicine was introduced in 17th century, and it was British Empire that established the first hospital in Chennai. It was then that Florence Nightingale succeeded in promoting her research-based design as a necessity for modern hospitals for faster curing in India. Study and survey continuously being done across globe till date are further establishing her research. Astonishing test results taken recently over a span of several months on interior design of a mock patient room in University Medical Center of Princeton showed it was loads of sunlight and outdoor views through large windows that fastened healing process in these renovated rooms with patients requesting 30% less medication. Reported in Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine in June 2014, done on office employees, showed that light percolating interiors during the natural daylight hours reduces common ailments like headaches, fatigue, medically defined stress, anxiety, and boredom in offices. Studies conducted on school building designs in past 2 decades or more have laid down that natural light improves not only health and growth, but also increases efficiency in students. Which parent would not want that for his child? Researchers all through this century on interior spaces have thus quite successfully assessed natural light and outdoor views' psychological effects on humans and established these 2 factors as the happiness quotient of the mind and the body's overall wellness. Window assembly solution providers suggest 7 projects where these high-performance windows can be used to enhance this quotient, namely in hospitals, offices, schools, restaurants, resorts, hotels, residences, and apartments, thus creating happiness through architecture. Today, the fenestration industry is trending with 7 choicest material for design requirements. UPVC, aluminium, engineered wood, fiberglass, and aluwood are cladding of metal and stones such as bronze and Italian, or wrap-ons like leather or vinyl. The window assemblies today include 7 types: sliding, lift and slide, slide and fold, casement, tilt and turn, louvered, all of which are customizable with accessories such as handles and locks and can be motorized. Market gives choices on fireproof and bulletproof assembly too. Gone are the days of manually operating a window. Stepped in are Wi-Fi operated sliders and lockers. The expectations from a fenestration system relating to the performance of window assembly by our fraternity has way exceeded basic requirements of the traditional window that, though gave aesthetic design and durability, lacked in easy maintenance and features such as water tightness, air tightness, and perhaps structural stability. Therefore, it is seen that high-performance, sophisticated window solution providers are trending in the market, dedicated and determined to provide the right fenestration solutions to our clients anywhere, every time. The keenness to stay afloat to vibrant imagination of creative minds has allowed the window assembly systems to become an integral part of a building interior and a statement for exterior facade anywhere in the world. This means creating for a project that enhances the architecture and environment for which it is destined. Finally, well-lit spaces with high-performance window assemblies not only provides happiness and health, but, ladies and gentlemen, helps avoid us with the 7S. No slips, no slops, no slaps, sticks, slides, sleek, seek. And lastly, I happened to observe that 7 letters together form ARCASIA, making it to be truly incredible by its 7 key approaches. No wonder fenestration industry, by adopting to unify 7 components, is truly trending with health and happiness through its windows assembly. Thank you.